because there are situations where you use both. I just told you one situation. Inviter quelqu'un, so just for the brevity purpose, inviter quelqu'un à quelque chose. Okay. So now you can have this verb inviter, which means to invite someone, direct object, to something, indirect object. So it is possible that in certain sentences you rewrite this with indirect object pronoun and direct object pronoun both, right? So you need to know the order, who comes first. Okay. So general theory is, or rule is, indirect object pronouns come before direct object pronouns. Indirect object first, then direct object. Unfortunately, if we just follow that rule, then sometimes it could become Louis le or Louis la. Louis is indirect object pronoun, le is direct object pronoun. So generally, indirect object pronoun comes before direct object pronoun. Only if it's Louis le or Louis la, okay, or even loh le or loh la, or even loh le and loh le. In this case, when it comes to third person indirect object pronouns or direct object pronouns, direct object pronouns will come first before the indirect object pronoun. Generally, indirect object comes before direct object. But in case of Louis law, which is third person, singular or plural, they will come after direct object because it just doesn't read well. Louis le or Louis la. It just totora लगता है वो बहुत. Louis la or le. How will you say le? Imagine le la, right? So they will mistake you for a matimand. So to avoid that, French people said, you know what? So we'll rewrite the rule and we'll say third person objects, we will do direct object first and then indirect object. This is the example. Elle te donne leur rôle.
Elle donne
leur rôle à toi.
leur rôle à toi.
Correct. Right? This is indirect object pronoun. That's why it became to. It became, right? Now this is a sentence. Elle donne leur rôle à toi. Okay? Direct object, indirect object. Direct object replacement will be what? Subject, auxiliary verb, participle, and this is actual verb which is in participle format because this is passé composé. So this is direct object.
Direct object.
And this is
indirect object.
Awesome. So now replace all direct objects and indirect objects with pronouns.
Elle, te, la, like L apostrophe E, donne.
Correct. Fantastic. So we had put the indirect object pronoun before the direct object pronoun, right?
Yeah.
That is correct because this is not third person objects, right? So we don't have that. We don't have to follow that. So la la before Louis la. So this is the normal indirect object pronoun first, followed by direct object. Nous vous envoyons le contrat. Sunil, can you tell me the actual sentence without any pronouns?
Nous envoyons le contrat à vous.
Correct. Nous envoyons le contrat à vous. So this is indirect object pronoun. Now we will also replace the direct object with direct object pronoun. So it will come after the indirect object pronoun. First indirect object pronoun, then direct object pronoun. Nous vous l'envoyons. Simple. Only case of third person objects, indirect object pronouns come after the direct object pronoun because we don't like the sound of lui le la. Okay, so we do that ulta. J'envoie la lettre au rédacteur. Rédacteur is editor. Okay. What's the direct object here?
Direct object is la lettre.
So the direct object pronoun is la.
Yeah.
And the indirect object
rédacteur.
Which is Louis.
Rédacteur.
Third person
Louis.
singular. Okay.
Yeah.
So now usually by the actual rule, indirect object should come before direct object pronoun. It will be je lui la envoie. But it will be difficult to speak, so we will reverse it. We'll put the direct object first. Je la lui envoie.
Yeah.
Cool. So we talked about the order of object pronouns. When we use more than one object pronoun in a sentence, we need to decide in what order they will appear in that sentence, right? So general order is indirect object pronouns come before, like first, then direct object pronouns, then e, then on. Okay. Remember that at any point of time, there is only two object pronouns that you can use in a sentence, right? You cannot use more than two. I mean, technically, there will be a possibility where you can use three, but when it happens like that, you will use two, and for the third one, you will just write without object pronoun, right? I'll give you an example basically. Even I would say that using two of them in a sentence is pretty rare. When it comes to language exams, hardly you will have a situation where you will use two of them together, but this will never happen, more or less. Okay, so we saw that indirect object pronouns come before direct object pronouns, except when we are talking about third person pronouns lui, leur. So it will not be lui, leur. In that case, direct object pronoun will come before the indirect object pronoun. So it will be le, lui or le, leur rather than leur, leur. In passé composé, we know that direct object pronoun is placed before the auxiliary verb or the helping verb, and the past participle agrees in number and gender of the direct object when it comes before the auxiliary verb, right? For example, il a écrit ces articles. He has written these articles, or he wrote these articles. Now we can replace this with a direct object pronoun. I think it will be les because it's plural, right? Now put it les before avoir. Il les a écrits. But now, because we have direct object pronoun before avoir in passé composé, we will match the past participle with the number and gender of the direct object pronoun. So it will become, we have to add an extra s because this is masculine plural, les articles.
Oui.
Yeah. I wrote a letter to her. This is phonotonic. In this particular sentence, this is, what's the subject? Subject is je, right? This is auxiliary verb or helping verb, avoir, past participle, direct object.
Sorry, direct object.
And this is indirect object because there's a preposition between this and the verb. Now, if I were to write this sentence again, replacing the direct object and indirect object both with pronouns, you remember in case of lui, leur, direct object comes before the indirect object.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah. It reverses. Right,
Yeah.
right.
So, je, la, lui, ai, écrit.
Écrit.
Now the question is, we got the order right. This is direct object pronoun, this is indirect object. In case of lui, the indirect object comes later. Okay, everything is right. Now the question is, will the past participle match the direct object pronoun in number and gender? Yes, it will. It will not match with this lui because it's an indirect object pronoun, but we still have a direct object pronoun, right? So it has to match with the direct object pronoun. So it will be je, la, lui, ai, écrite, because the direct object pronoun is still coming before avoir auxiliary verb. Okay? When on is combined with an indirect object pronoun, it is always in second position. Yeah, I was telling you that general order is indirect object pronouns, right? Direct object pronouns, then we have e, and then we have on. So if you have a combination where we have an indirect object pronoun and on will come after. Okay. So past participles, the past participle do not ever agree with e, on, or any kind of indirect object pronoun, whether in gender or number. That issue is only with direct object pronouns. Elle lui a offert des fleurs. Elle lui en. Okay, so now we are using en here, right? So on will come second. We don't match the participle with any of them. Okay. Past participle does not, never agrees with e or en or indirect object pronouns. So one good example of this ordering would be this. Il y a beaucoup de pommes dans le frigo. Okay. So here we have a situation where we can now use, instead of beaucoup de pommes, we'll replace this expression of quantity with en. So again we'll say il y en a beaucoup. Here actually in the sentence there was already e present. We understand this expression as il y a, but in il y a, e is already acting as a pronoun. So now we have a situation where we are using en and e. En will follow e. E will come first, then there will be en. So en as a pronoun is used as a to replace inanimate indirect object pronouns. It can also be used as notion of quantity, notion of place. Tu aimes beaucoup d'animaux. Oui, j'en aime beaucoup. Now, I don't think you need the here again. So we had covered all these conditions of using en, where it is used as a place, right? Je reviens de Paris. J'en reviens. But because you guys don't go back and study, most of you forgot most of the things. All right. So that's the order basically. One more time. We have indirect object pronouns, direct object pronouns. In case of Louis leur, it comes later. Then we have e, en. But remember, two pronouns is the limit. I talked about it, right? The French won't say something like je le lui y ai donné. Instead, they will reword the sentence to remove one of the pronouns. Je lui y ai donné le livre. So you remove the le, direct object pronoun, to make sure that there are only two pronouns in the sentence. Two object pronouns. Okay. So I want to talk about how to use this object pronouns in combination with the commands, positive commands, orders. Right? For example, écoute le professeur. Listen to the professor. Then écoute-le with a hyphen, tihe. Cherche la radio. Look for the radio. Cherche la. So we know this, right? Réponds aux questions. Répondis. Prends du lait. So every pronoun, whether it's direct object pronoun or e or en, they come after the order with a hyphen. That we already know. Now, what happens when there are two of them? Right? In this case, donne-nous les réponses. Give us the answers. So, this is direct object, les réponses, right? Give us. So, nous is an indirect object pronoun. And this is direct object. So, when we replace this, it will donne les nous. So, here, if you see, direct object comes before the indirect object. So, it's ulta in positive orders.
Yeah.
Donne les nous. So you have to be aware of this fact. You should know that the order is reversed. Chante la nous. Sing it for us or sing it to us. What? Chanson. Verb like order, imperative verb, direct object pronoun, indirect object pronoun. Separated by tihe. Chante la nous. One last thing. Donne-moi de l'argent. So now you have seen that in orders, moi and te become moi and toi. You remember that when you have to change this pronouns to moi, toi in positive orders, right? Whether it's indirect object pronoun or direct object pronoun, you still change both of them to moi, toi, right? But
Yeah.
when you combine it with en, for example, this was donne-moi de l'argent, give me some money, okay? Which is also what I'm asking you, give me some money. But if you replace some money with en, this is partitive, right? And you can replace partitive with en. We have studied that. Now, this sounds bizarre, right? Donne-moi en. Right? Donne-moi en. It's just moi en. So, again, what do they do now? They go back from moi to moi. Just in case of en, they will make you do donne-moi or give me some.
Okay.
Just because of that sound, they change back the moi to mo. In negative orders, it's the same, right? The order is same, like the pronouns come before the verb. Don't do your homework. I hope some parents say this to their kids. Cool parents. Ne fais pas tes devoirs. Don't do your homework. Ne les fais pas. Don't do it. Ne faites pas vos devoirs. Ne les faites pas. So it's basically the pronouns come before the verb in negative orders. Okay.